out of the committee who would like to ask questions of Sarah? John? Councillor Hart, should I say?
Sorry, my voice is a bit hard.
Microphone and...
Yeah, you mentioned that there are other sources of monies for this purpose, and why hasn't the council gone looking forward? Isn't it perhaps something that the governors and the staff and the parents of Mapledown might undertake? We're in I'm afraid, in times of dire shortages of money, and we're not going to get more money. We know that the budget of the borough is going to be cut by 20% over the next 3 years. So a lot of very nice things and desirable things are likely to be threatened. Could I suggest then that perhaps self-help in this case...
Self-help?
What? Self-help in this case might be a possibility, with the help obviously of the officers of the council of the borough. I mean, we don't wash our hands of it, we just haven't got the money.
Would you like to answer that?
Start?
Yes, I would like to answer that. I make the following points, Councillor. You refer to nice things. I'd like to start by saying these are not just nice extras. For the parents behind me, these are a necessity. Secondly, I agree that it should not be beyond the wit of the councillors in this room and in this cabinet to sit down with parents, to sit down with the school and find this money to keep these short breaks going. As I've said, other Conservative councillors, under the very same pressures, have managed to do so. And what is this about, ultimately? It is about the choices that we make within the budget. Of course there is a tight funding envelope, but we make choices about the priorities in our community, and part of the reason why I'm sitting here today is because I consider this particular group of vulnerable children and their parents to be a group that is worthy of prioritisation.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gordon.
Yeah. We appreciate everything that you have said, and if there were any way in which we could find money for all the things that people expect the council to spend money on, when it comes to our resources, we would do so. So can I ask you this question? Do you not feel that, wherever cuts are made, there are always going to be people who will say, why here, why there? Especially with your allowances. We cannot say for everybody. And although we understand what you say, and I feel it's sad that we have to be in a situation which we're in. There isn't unlimited money, and that we have done, and our administration has done everything it can to try and be fair. And I think you also consider you're comparing with other Conservative councils. Now, respectfully suggested, not making
how many millions have you spent on private
the amount that we spend on education, on social services, and many other services, also particularly for vulnerable people, is far more than many other councils spend. So I do not feel it's taking it out of context, just look at one particular thing and compare that with other Conservative councils.
Cut your allowances.
Right, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, would you please, if a councillor, whether you agree or not with the comments he's making, if you could be polite and listen to that councillor who is here to speak and ask or pose questions. You didn't actually pose a question, Councillor Gordon.
I did.
We missed it, that Jen. Do repeat it.
I'm able to respond to that comment.
I made a comment that I'd be grateful if you could give me your response.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. As I said, I consider that it's a false economy to take away from this particular school what is, in the broader context of this council's budget, a drop in the ocean, £45,000, but which represents to these families an absolutely vital service. And as we've heard from Teresa Gordon earlier, this is a false economy. Because if you save £55,000 by cutting respite care, you're only going to increase the costs arising out of the mental and physical distress caused to those carers, and indeed to those students who will not have the benefit of these services.
Thank you very much indeed.
The other point you raise is this. Where else can the money be found? As I said, The reason we are here is to remit, is to ask for this decision to be remitted and for the Cabinet to look again. As we heard earlier, there has been no actual assessment of the economy of this decision. It hasn't been tested what other loss would arise. And it cannot be beyond the wit of this Cabinet and the councillors in this room to find that money. There are particular items in this council's budget, even within your funding envelope. I've mentioned councillors' allowances. I can mention too the cost of the Barnet First magazine. I can mention the public health budget. There's money there that could be used, and as I said, have been publicly shown by the Labour group within this council, that could be used to reverse these cuts. The money is there and it can be found.
So, thank you. You've made your point and you've answered the question. Thank you very much. Councillor Salinger.
Someone else's is on.
Oh, sorry. Do I have to turn it off?
That might be why I do understand where you're coming from. I have a son who had special needs who 20-something years ago did attend summer holiday play schemes at Mapledown. So I do understand the benefits, and I do understand the issues. I also understand the constraints on council finance. And I'm fascinated that you should identify as your principal source of alternative funding members' expenses, which is a perfectly reasonable argument to make. Can I tell you that I'm one of the members who does not claim all the money that they're entitled to?
Voted for the pay
Is
rise,
there
like
anyone else
right,
around
didn't you?
this table who doesn't claim every penny they're entitled to?
Councillor Salinger, I don't think you should need to ask. And certainly the committee don't need to answer that question.
I can ask Ms. Sackman, are you aware of any members, particularly amongst the Labour members, who trumpeted the reduction of expenses, who have voluntarily decided not to take
£1 you spend on
not to
consultants.
take the full amount of allowances, and it's entirely up to each individual councillor as to whether or not they claim all of the allowances to which they're
Right,
entitled.
parking place.
Easier when you're a landlord and independently wealthy.
Right, excuse me. Councillor Salinger, could you refer that into a question, please? What is your question?
Are you aware if there are any members, you're an active member of the Labour Party, aren't you? Are you aware of any of your councillors who do not claim the benefits that they're entitled to?
It's not about that.
What's
I
that
think
got
that's
to
a
do-
yes or no.
What's that got to do with support?
The answer to that question is this. I'm not aware of the particular claims of particular Labour councillors, but I do think the question, with respect, councillor, is a diversion from what is the key issue here, which is fundamentally that there is short breaks funding made available by the central government, which this council has chosen not to sustain for vital services at Mapledown and other institutions. It's not about what particular Labour councils do or do not do. It's about political choices, and I'm afraid so far this cabinet has made the wrong ones.
No further questions. Any other questions? Councillor Cohen. And if we can please keep it down to the subject in question, please.
I'll try to contain my frustration at the way this is going by asking this question. Wouldn't you agree with me that what we're trying to achieve is not a political argument?
I would quite agree with you, Councillor Cohen.
Thank you very much. So I won't ask the question I'm tempted to ask, but I'll ask you this, which is really important. As far as you are aware, were the parents, the government, the staff at the school consulted in any way back in November when we told all this was seemed to be hidden away in one huge amount of money? Were they consulted in any way to alert them that this is what the council are proposing? What are your views? Simply that, were they consulted?
Thank you.
As far as you are aware.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Cohen. I'd like to just agree with the premise of your question, which is, please don't let me be misunderstood. Yes, it's well known that I am active in the local Labour Party and indeed a parliamentary candidate for Finchley and Lord's Green for the Labour Party. But genuinely speaking, I agree with Councillor Cohen, this is not about being Labour, Conservative or Democrat.
Thank you.
This is about the parents and children of Mapledown School, and I really want to highlight that this is about everybody in this room and beyond it in the council working together to find a practical solution to this. We can all work together, it doesn't have to be a political football. In answer to your question as to the consultation, when the issue, as I am aware, of the council's budget, which included the changes to children's services and short breaks, was consulted in November, there was no particularisation of the cut to Mapledown, i.e. the parents, and indeed certainly the parents, could not have known that what would result was a 27% cut to Mapledown. That would be true for all the other institutions that had their budgets cut. And therefore, unsurprisingly, these parents didn't respond to that consultation. I'd add a further point, which is that in relation to consultations need to be fair. They should also be in relation to those who are affected by the decision. The parents whom I've spoken to were not given a chance to respond to that consultation. Firstly, because they weren't told that that was the cut going to be made to their school. And secondly, because the consultation wasn't adapted to the fact that these parents, and many of them are full-time carers, don't have time to read everything that's on the council website.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed.
That was the cut.
Is that an answer to your question, Councillor? Thank you very much indeed. If there's no further questions, thank you very much indeed, Sarah Sackman.
Thank you very much.